All right, we're back. What's up? It's Thrax Trades. Today in this video, we're going to be talking about an indicator I actually made yesterday. I coded an indicator. We're going to go over what it is, how to set it up, how to use it, why you would want to use it, whether it's even going to be a benefit or not to use this indicator. But first, let me kind of talk about why I made the indicator. So I really made this indicator for me and specifically my strategy. I just thought to make it public and for free on TradingView. If anyone else found it useful, by all means, they can go ahead and use it. I just want to have this video out there just in case anyone wants to use this. They'll know how to set it up. They'll know how to adjust it so that it works best for their scenario. So just a quick overview of what the indicator is. So it is a multi-time frame sentiment indicator. And basically what this indicator is doing is we have 7 time frames here listed on our indicator. It is determining whether the sentiment for that time frame is either bearish or bullish based off of some technical indicators that it's calculating the data off of. And then it is giving us a lower time frame overall and higher time frame overall sentiment. And the way that the overall sentiments are calculated is for the first 3 time frames. Those should be your lower time frames. It has a 2 out of 3 rule. So if 2 out of 3 of the time frames are bullish, then it's going to give it an overall bullish sentiment. If it is bearish, 2 out of 3 are bearish, then it's going to give it a bearish sentiment. Same goes for the higher time frame. The only difference with the higher time frame is that the higher time frame is doing a 3 out of 4 rule. So if 3 out of 4 of your higher time frames are bullish, it'll be bullish. If 3 out of 4 are bearish, then the overall sentiment for the higher time frame is going to be bearish. You can adjust the time frames to whatever you want. Just keep in mind the first 3 time frames are going to be your lower time frames. The other 4 time frames following the first 3, so 4 to 7, are going to be your higher time frames. So let me just kind of go into why I created this indicator. So the reason I created this indicator is because I'm typically placing trades on a 1 or 5 minute chart, and I do typically have like a 15-minute chart pulled up. I have multiple screens, but it is hard to kind of keep track of every single chart. And so I thought it'd be easier if I just kind of condensed it all down into a simple table chart, just to be able to keep your eyes on one screen, kind of get an understanding of what's going on. And the reason why is because sometimes I'm so zoomed in on the charts on the 1 minute, I forget to, take a bird's eye view or zoom out to see what's happening on higher time frames. Now, as you know, higher time frame sentiment or analysis is very important when it comes to intraday trading, even if you're scalping. Of course, it might change a little bit if you're scalping on let's say a 5-second chart or 15-second chart. But nonetheless, having an overall idea of where the market is actually moving and how the sentiment looks for all the time frames combined, it should really give you a better idea on what side of the market you want to be on when taking trades. If the sentiment for lower time frames and higher time frames are all bearish, you don't really want to take a long position. You just have lower probabilities of it actually working out, and vice versa. If everything is showing bullish, lower time frame overall is bullish, higher time frame overall is bullish, you don't really want to be taking shorts. You can, but probabilities of it working out is going to be slightly lower. So it's just making sure that when you are taking trades, you're going to be on the right side of the market. Now keep in mind, this is an indicator. No indicator, I don't care what anyone tells you, is not going to make you profitable. This is just a tool. You should not be taking trades based off of this indicator. You should have your strategy. You should have your methodology for actually taking trades, your own rules. And this should just be a tool to help with confirmation or confluence when it comes to actually making your decisions on how to trade. That is very important. I do not want to have you taking trades solely based off of the time frame analysis showing bullish or bearish. So that's just a quick overview on why I created the indicator. I don't know if anyone's going to find it helpful. If they do, great. If not, doesn't really matter to me. It's free. If you want to use it, you can. If not, doesn't matter. So I'll kind of go over what it actually is. So essentially, it's called the multi-time frame sentiment. This one is the pro version. I have a version that's actually the first one I created, but I wanted to make it more customizable for everybody. So it's basically combining price action, volume analysis, and multiple technical indicators to actually provide like a market analysis across different time frame combinations. You can customize it. It's fully customizable. You can modify any of the 7 time frames for analysis. It is using dynamic lower time frame and higher time frame calculations. And what are those calculations actually based off of? So how are we actually coming to find out whether something is bullish or bearish? Well, I have it set up on a few different things. So we're in the settings now for the indicator. As you can see, it's fully customizable. You can adjust all of the time frames. Just keep in mind the first 3, those are your lower time frames. The next 4, those are going to be your higher time frames. This is how I currently have mine set up, which is showing here. You do have time frame visibility. So if you want to turn all of these off, it'll still be calculating for the overall, but it just won't show on the chart. If you want them on, you can keep them on, or you can remove some or add some, doesn't matter. But I want to talk about how is this actually calculating what is showing on the chart. So we're using a few different things here. We're using the EMA, we're using RSI, we're using MACD, and we are using Bollinger Bands. And then we are using volume analysis. So it's like VWAP and on balance volume. You can decide whether or not you want to use these or not use these in your calculations. You can also adjust the EMA length, the RSI length, the MACD settings, the Bollinger Band length and standard deviations. And the most important thing here that you want to consider is the weight. The weight is basically how the output is getting calculated. This might be a little confusing for some people, but this is important. The output, because we're using multiple technical indicators, it is getting scored off of a point system. So if you add more weight towards a certain indicator or technical indicator, it is going to give it a higher weight percentage when it's actually calculating the output. And the reason why this is important is because you're going to need to adjust the weight of these technical indicators for your specific strategy. If you don't want to adjust the weight, or you don't want to figure that out, you don't need to. I have the MTF, the multi-time frame sentiment, the first version. It's not really customizable. If you want to just plug and play and go, you can. But it is better and it's more powerful to actually be able to adjust these settings. And I have my settings adjusted. They're going to look different than yours because the defaults are different, but I have weights set specifically for my strategy. To give you an understanding of why I have it set up like this, my strategy, I'm typically looking for reversals. Now, sometimes it's with the trend, sometimes it's not with the trend, but for the most part, I am looking for reversals. So to give you an idea on why my settings are set like this, so I currently have my EMA weight set to 2, which is technically 20% of the total. I also have my on balance volume set to 2, which is another 20% of the total. The reason why I have it set like this is because it helps me validate moves I'm seeing at key levels I'm looking for, and that's just for my strategy, right? I have the RSI weight set to 1, which is lower. And I also have the Bollinger Band weight set to 1.25, which is lower. And the reason for that is since I'm already using footprint charts for my executions, I don't really need Bollinger Bands or RSI to identify like exhaustion or absorption. So I just lower the volume I lower the weight for that, right? MACD, I do have it set kind of in a medium weight. It's at 1.75. And it just helps me confirm momentum during moves from key levels that I'm looking at. And you're gonna have to really adjust this for your strategy. So are you looking for reversals? Are you typically, trading trend continuations? It really just depends, right? So you can play around with it. One thing I like to do is I do like to use AI. So, if you describe this indicator, or you go to the publishing page that's in the description below, and you copy and paste what the indicator is, you give it a chat GPT, you explain your strategy, and you ask it what settings you should be using, it'll give you some settings that, might make sense. And then of course you want to back test it a little bit. And the last thing here is just visual settings. It is customizable, so you can adjust any of the colors here. You can adjust the position of it if you want it to be on the top of your chart, on the left side of your chart, right side, center, you can do so. And so the idea on how you want to actually use this is you want to use it to confirm the setups that you're taking. So let's say you're looking for a long position. It would make a lot of sense if the sentiment for all the time frames are bullish. You know, you're gonna take a long, everything's looking bullish, lines up, it makes sense. Vice versa for when you're looking for a short. If the sentiment overall for the lower time frame or higher time frame is bearish and you're looking for shorts, it's gonna make a lot of sense, right? If you're looking for longs and everything is bearish, it's not gonna make much sense. You might get lucky, sure. You're not gonna have as much as a continuation move or a bigger move. If it remains the opposite of your position, you're basically just trying to utilize this in confluence with your actual strategy just to make sure you're on the right side of things when you're actually going to make trades. And I'll kind of do a quick replay here and show you what it looks like. It's a very simple indicator. I just wanted to give a quick explanation on how to set it up, what it is. One thing I also want to mention too is if you load up the indicator and when you load it up, it's loading up in a pane below, like a pane down here. All you have to do is go to the actual indicator on the bottom pane, click the three dots, move to existing pane above, and then it'll move it to where your chart's at. So if that's an issue for you, you know, you can always just move it up. It's very simple to do. So I'll give you an example of what this kind of looks like. So obviously, you know, we had a sell-off on Friday. It was a pretty big one too. So obviously everything is going to be bearish. So in a situation like this where everything is bearish, it's not likely that you're going to be looking for some long positions, right? It just wouldn't make a lot of sense. You're basically trying to go against the current. So it's not going to make a lot of sense to do so. Now, let's say we're in a situation like this, right, where we might flip from bearish into a bullish sentiment. So let's watch how the actual indicator here adjusts. So we're on a 5-minute time frame. It's calculating the 5-minute, the 15-minute, the 30-minute for our lower time frames, and it's calculating the 1 hour, 4 hour, daily, and weekly for our higher time frames. Just so you know what we're basing this off of, we're going to be currently looking at the 5-minute time frame, and we're just going to be watching what it does. So as price starts to go lower, we're in a bearish situation, right? You're going to be looking for a continuation until this switches to bullish for lower time frame and higher time frame overall. The moment it starts to switch to bullish, then of course you could be looking for a reversal. But until that happens, you don't really want to be looking at long positions, or if you do, you got to make sure that you're right. So now that we're switching into a bullish sentiment, obviously any pullback into, let's say, an imbalance or a fair value gap or whatever you're looking at, support, you know, you're going to be looking for an entry on the longs. The good thing about this indicator and what you can do is you can use it actually to time your exits. So let's say you got into a long position down here and price is continuing. The moment that you start seeing that the indicator is indicating that, you know, everything is bearish now, you can consider yourself to try and start getting out of this trade. Otherwise, if you put your stop to break even, right, it's eventually just going to come back and hit your break even if the overall lower time frame and higher time frame remains bearish if you're in a long. One of the important things you want to look at when you're actually trading, depending on what time frame you're actually trading on, is going to be the difference on how you're going to look at this, but you want to keep your eye on the higher time frame overall sentiment. Realistically, that is more important when it comes to making decisions. The lower time frame sentiments can obviously fake you out. You'll find a good way to use it if you want to use it. The way I use it is I'm basically looking for the lower time frame and higher time frame overall sentiments to align, and then I'm looking for an entry, whether it's a fair value gap or one of my other levels. I use stat map levels, I use digital time theory levels, and if all aligns, then of course I am going to take a position and I'm going to continue to trail my stop loss until the sentiment changes into bearish if I'm going long, and vice versa. So it's a free indicator. You know, if you want to play around with it and use it with your strategy, you're more than free to do so. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them in the comment section below. It's a super simple indicator. There's not a lot to it except for the settings. You want to make sure those are right for your strategy. That could make or break whether or not this is even going to be useful for you, is setting up those settings. If you have questions on how to do it, you can either ask or you can use ChatGPT or AI to give you an answer. It does a pretty good job. Obviously, it's just an indicator. It's not the secret sauce. It's just a tool to help you out in deciding direction and deciding sentiment. So keep that in mind. Do not make any trades based off of just lower time frame and higher time frame sentiments. It's not going to work. You're going to need to use it with your strategy. So that's about it. Go ahead, go in the comment section, let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you have any questions. If there's anything on here you want me to change, I'm more than happy to do so. If you have any recommendations for an indicator, I might make it, might not. Depends if I find it interesting enough. And the link for this indicator is in the description below if you want to read up more on it. I do have a setup guide on it, and I also have just an analysis of what it is. So I'll catch you guys next time we trade. Peace.